In the alternate reality of the gaming world, where creativity knows no bounds, some creators have pushed the limits of what's acceptable. Moral outrage and intense controversy cast a shadow of doubt over these video games, deemed too violent and submersive for the public eye. Number 10. The scene is set. It's 1997, and the computer screen emits a glow that engulfs the room. The rolling office chair needs more than a simple push to move across the carpeted floor in a bedroom of a teenager in the middle of the night. His hands glide effortlessly over the bulky keyboard with a sense of expertise and take hold of the unconventional mouse. This arrow hovers over the newly released first-in-the-series video game produced by Stainless Games. If there was a moment of hesitation, the mean-looking face on the icon was convincing enough to initiate that double click. Carmageddon, the graphically violent, driving-oriented game, was released on the 30th of June 1997 on Windows PC and Macintosh. The game, ahead of its time, became most notable for its realistic nature and its groundbreaking physics. It was one of the earliest examples of a sandbox 3D driving game, the influence behind the Driver and Grand Theft Auto series. The dystopian environments were large and detailed, with automotive playgrounds ranging from a toxic chemical plant to a ski resort. The gameplay, as its name would suggest, was to wreak as much havoc as possible using the provided vehicle. The aim of this game is for players to work their way up through the ranks, from 99th to 1st. They're pitted against computer-generated competitors and are required to meet a number of requirements. To beat a level, the gamer would need to achieve one of these three things: finish all the laps of the race course, like any normal racing game, waste all of the opponent's vehicles, or drive into or over as many pedestrians as possible, with bonus awards for style. In the cinematic opening scene, the player is met with the visual of a car, with a bright light emerging behind it. Most cars are brought into the scene, showing moments of engines revving, exhaust fumes, car numbers, stop signs, glowing lights, rim spikes, and finally, the checkered flag, prompted by a feeling of anticipation. Finally, when the drivers do take off, we're met with the terrifying face and bracing maneuver of the flagman, who's hit by the leading car and removed completely from view. It's easy to see why this video game wouldn't be left for the public to access without being subjected to intense inspection, consideration, and deliberation. Following its release, this video game would become the first ever to be refused by the British Board of Film and Video Classification. The UK subsequently placed a ban on Carmageddon for its execution for enjoyment premise. Eventually, though, the board did decide to release the game, but on one condition: the pedestrians would need to be replaced with zombies with green vital fluid. In Germany, where Carmageddon was also frowned upon, they insisted that the pedestrians be robots with oil to replace vital fluid. But not every country or city was willing to compromise. Regardless of the species, the violence was unacceptable. Carmageddon was completely banned in both Brazil and Argentina. For the latter, it would be this very game that initiated the law that ultimately prevents the sale of video games where vehicles are used towards the destruction of people. Number 9. Play as a Train, a toy graffiti artist with the street smarts, athletic prowess, and vision to become an all-city king, the most reputable of all graffiti artists. This is the summary posted on Steam, a synopsis of Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure, which features elements of illegal tagging, street fighting, the use of improvised weapons, and sneak mode, which prevents the player from getting caught and allows them to silently creep through the city. The video game, developed by The Collective, was published by Atari, under license from Echo Unlimited. Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure was released on the 14th of February 2006 for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and Windows. This action-adventure game has been more or less forgotten by most gamers today, yet it was its release that held one of the strangest yet expected reasons for becoming banned. Getting Up wasn't just about some figure jumping through the city, fighting with NPCs on the street, and spray painting his name in unorthodox places. It was about fighting back against a tyrannical government and the city's mayor, who'd suppressed the freedom of expression. In the game, this particular city has expression restrictions, and graffiti is completely illegal everywhere. Train's graffiti is a form of protest that exposes the mayor and sets the city free. Even today, the idea of citizens rising against the government to promote freedom and encourage autonomy is frowned upon. But 20 years ago, it was even worse. Much like books, songs, and movies, video games that nurture rebellion are often the subjects of intense scrutiny, and the result is often an outright ban. The message being delivered by Getting Up would ultimately become lost on the majority of Australia's ratings board, the Australian Office of Film and Literature Classification. They candidly refused to rate the game, directly preventing it from being released. The board revealed that not only was this game promoting illegal graffiti and street fighting, but it also provided instructions on how to engage in them. It became illegal for the game to be sold in the country. In a press statement, the OLFC review board detailed that the game presents realistic scenarios in which the central character acquires his techniques and skills through meetings with 5 real graffiti artists, revealing to the player all the tips and tricks they can use to paint the city with throwies. The game additionally rewarded the player with positive reinforcement for damaging public buildings and infrastructure. Additionally, gamers could access 56 biographies of real-life graffiti artists, with details of personal tags, styles, and careers. Some of these artists continued such practices at the time of the game's release. Getting Up directly involved the real world in what should have been a simple game. Number 8. Since its genesis in November of 1997, Grand Theft Auto has served as more than just a franchise. It's now a cultural monolith that's now on its 6th core game and major expansion installment, with GTA 6 set to be released this year. Following its modest debut, the franchise exploded into an absolute obsession. Open-world chaos converged with art, rewriting the rules of gaming as a whole. With each passing generation, it becomes more ambitious, immersive, and all the more influential. Players of GTA are left to roam the open world freely, exploring vast and extremely detailed cities. They had a variety of cars to choose from, and could chat with the NPCs throughout the game. In later versions of Grand Theft Auto, gamers were introduced to a limitless world with the addition of a wide range of vehicles, from simple scooters to full passenger planes. The narrative of this game, though, is rife with criminal intent, because to acquire any of these things, the gamer would need to do something atrocious: steal them. Often, stealing a car would be done by approaching the desired vehicle and simply yanking the driver out and leaving him on the curb. Occasionally, some of the NPCs would try to fight the player to get their car back, but were met with brutality and were often overpowered by the obsessive, quick clicking of a simple button. It wasn't only robbery, though, that became a staple feature in this universe. The gameplay revolves around committing almost every single illegal act through story-driven missions: car theft, narcotic smuggling, assaults with fatal weapons, homicide, vandalism, arson, indecent exposure, and trespassing. While the game did include law enforcement that would chase down the player for these illegal activities, it didn't stop players from evading arrest, or even continuing a violent spree by attacking said officers too. The officials in the game, though, were also corrupt, and would eventually stop the chase after some time. Since the very start of the franchise, though, the flagship franchise from Rockstar Games became the center of contention, making it no stranger to controversy, which has long been fighting censorship. With features of extreme violence, unsavory humor, and unethical storylines, almost every GTA title has been met with full-blown backlash. Offering itself as a prime example of the crude nature of the franchise, the 2004 GTA San Andreas featured a hot coffee mod, a minigame available through a PC hack. The explicit add-on was discovered by modders after it had been disabled but not removed from the game's coding. The result? Massive controversy, an adults-only rating, and several lawsuits. It would be this very mod that brought GTA's controversy to a peak, leading to intense analysis and subsequent bans in several countries. Australia would be the first to ban the franchise countrywide due to this very detail. But there were other reasons that would lead them to remove the game from shelves. In fact, much of the controversy stemmed from customer complaints who'd purchased it from retail chains like Target. Buyers found that some of the games were just much too violent, specifically Grand Theft Auto 5, which seemed to exhibit an extreme attitude towards women. According to customer reviews, GTA has very little room for female characters, other than to portray them as ladies of the night or to allow players to engage with them only through violent means, such as robbing them and ending their lives. In GTA 5, gamers explore the city of Los Santos, a parody of modern-day LA. The game follows 3 violent criminals as they carry out a series of heists, with homicide and torture making intense appearances, as many players direct their attention to female NPCs. Australia wasn't the only country to ban the franchise. GTA, shockingly, was met with scrutiny in the United States as well, where it was banned from sale in major department stores. Tajikistan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE would soon follow suit, having argued against the immoral content for years. Germany and France imposed heavy censorship on the games to comply with their strict laws. Brazil imposed a temporary ban on some episodes of Liberty City. GTA 6, though it has not yet been released, may face a ban in Russia as well, with pre-existing restrictions possibly preventing its release within the country. Number 7. The Battlefield series for PC and console is an award-winning video game that began with Battlefield 1942, developed by Digital Illusion CE and published by Electronic Arts. The general summary of the gameplay that players can expect involves a team-based narrative, with the series focusing largely on online multiplayer battles. Players can choose between vehicle warfare and team-based infantry combat. Battlefield 3 is the 12th installment in the series, released in 2011 for PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. This version includes both single and co-op campaigns. The end goal of single-player mode is to stop Solomon, the antagonist, from detonating a nuclear device in New York City, and prevent the start of the Third World War. The multiplayer option focuses on team-based tactical combat, with players able to choose from 4 distinct classes: Assault, Support, Engineer, and Recon. The series didn't just stop at Battlefield 3, though. Just 2 years later, EA published the sequel under the development codename Warsaw. Battlefield 4 saw enhanced graphics, more destructible environments, and improved multiplayer features that built upon the foundation laid by previous entries. The game saw numerous elements from its predecessors, and was available on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC. It would also become the first game in the series to be released on 8th generation consoles, after being brought to PlayStation 4 just a month after it was published. These advancements made the sequel stand out among other contemporary games. While not outwardly gruesome or featuring extensive gore, both of these games would receive intense backlash from Iran and China, and there were several reasons these countries did not take well to the video game series, specifically these 2 installments. One reason raised the question: can a game be considered a threat to national security? In the eyes of the 2 opposing countries, it could. Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 took place in the homelands of these countries, depicting them as under intense attack and conquered by enemy forces. Iran found that the single-player campaign depicted a United States military invasion of Tehran, with the deployment of American tanks and troops attacking the capital. The country viewed it as hostile propaganda. Authorities subsequently prohibited the game's sale in stores. A Chinese newspaper accused Battlefield 4 of discrediting China's image and misleading young gamers by intentionally distorting the truth. The ministry claimed the game was illegal because of its references to cultural invasion. China's government was left mobilizing to keep these 2 games off the shelves. The decision ultimately gave all players who had already bought or downloaded the games the option to delete all of the content. Number 6. In the cult classic Harvester, gamers play the part of the central character Steve, an amnesiac who only knows his name. The game starts with Steve waking up in a peculiar town of Harvest, in what appears to be the perfect neighborhood of Stepford suburbia. But soon, this character realizes that something strange is going on. For starters, his mother is making cookies, thousands of them, in preparation for a bake sale that's still a week away. But as soon as they come out of the oven, they're shoveled into the trash. Meanwhile, the baby is left alone in his crib, screaming and crying, neglected. Steve's older brother is sitting in front of the television screen, not moving, watching a very realistic and disturbing show of conflict between cowboys and Native Americans. The player is then informed of an upcoming drive in which citizens are required to donate their vital fluid, except lodge members. Steve is encouraged to join the lodge. But as he tries to enter the lodge either by stealing an application or acquiring it by other means, he evolves into the villain of the story. From stealing antique barber poles to arson, the character can't stop himself. He has to make it into the lodge before the drive, becoming part of the shadowy group known as the Order of the Harvest Moon. And once you do, the violence and gore reach their highest. The video game Harvester was released in 1996 and is set in 1953. Players are left to explore the eerie town where they encounter strange, disturbing characters who commit violent acts just to progress. It's dark, satirical, gruesome, and holds the unofficial title of one of the most disgusting games ever created. The game's controversy centered not only on its graphic violence, but also on its disturbing themes and satirical criticism of 1950s American culture. In addition to shock value, Harvester tackled taboo topics such as cult activity, child neglect, and cannibalism, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in video game storytelling at the time. The game's use of full-motion video sequences with real actors contributed to its unsettling atmosphere, blurring the line between fiction and reality for its audience. It's creations like this that promoted the idea that video games make people homicidal, fueling both media outrage and ongoing debates about the psychological impact of interactive entertainment. The gameplay is simple, point and click, with a mixture of real-life videos and pixelated graphics, complete with puzzles, jump scares, satanic rituals, and cannibalism. It would be these shocking elements that led to Harvester's ban in Germany. The violence was too much, and video games were often promoted to the youth. The explicit content and gratuitous violence directly violated the German Criminal Code Section 131 relating to depictions of violence. Outraged by the intensity of Harvester, the country rendered it illegal to sell or otherwise distribute the content. The game faced the same level of pushback in other regions as well, leading to heavy censorship in Europe, France, and Spain. Though not a direct ban in these countries, the censorship was significant compared to the freely distributed, uncut version released in America. Number 5. The global phenomenon that is Pokémon is the Japanese franchise owned by Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures Inc. The franchise, a set of RPG video games, was created by Satoshi Tajiri and was released in 1996, quickly becoming a cult classic. Since then, Pokémon has expanded into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, including trading cards, TV shows, movies, toys, and merchandise, making it one of the most recognizable brands worldwide. Most installments of the series emphasize capturing and taming enemy monsters to build the player's own party. To date, there are more than 1,000 Pokémon to collect, with new ones introduced each generation. In the game, humans coexist alongside the creatures, with the core idea being to explore the maps, capture and train them for battle. The ultimate goal is to become a Pokémon master. One recurring element involves confronting a criminal organization that seeks to use legendary Pokémon to reshape the world. These organizations include Team Plasma, Team Yell, and Team Rocket. The Pokémon that players collect vary in purpose and ability, with 18 official element types in existence. Elements include fire, water, grass, and ground types, but also electric, psychic, dragon, ice, poison, and many more to the extensive mix. Some Pokémon are legendary or mythical, and their rarity adds to the challenge of filling the Pokédex. And as players progress, their creatures can grow stronger and evolve into new forms as they deepen their bonds with their trainers. Before they evolve into mature, monstrous beings, these creatures take on a cute, cuddly appearance that has captured the attention of many gamers. So if the Pokémon game series is as endearing as many have come to find it, then why would any country want to ban it? In March of 2001, it was reported on the BBC that Saudi Arabia, specifically the highest religious authority, banned Pokémon due to its promoting of Zionism, alluding to the symbol used for the Pokémon energy. They also cited that the franchise involved gambling, which was not only against the law, but the religion of the country. The article also quoted Saudi Arabia's alleged stance on the matter, and they supposedly believed that the game was attracting a massive number of students, becoming their preoccupation. All of their money would be vacuumed into Pokémon in an effort to buy cards and more. And it was initially reported that Saudi Arabia had issued a fatwa against Pokémon Go, but this was later found to be untrue. But Niantic, the owner of Pokémon Go, still prevented the app from becoming available in the country for quite some time, even though it remains available in other Middle Eastern countries. But Saudi Arabia is not the only place that unleashed a storm against the release of this particular game. Iran led the way in banning or restricting Pokemon Go, citing security concerns over its use of location-based virtual reality technology. Iran's Supreme Council of Virtual Space insisted that any game seeking to operate nationwide must obtain permission from the Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance, a requirement the creators had not requested at that time. In China, the game was also met with the country's Great Firewall, preventing it from even being played. The State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film, and Television stated that the game requires a high level of responsibility for national security, suggesting that a lack of such responsibility may directly impact the safety of people and property. Additionally, it was suggested that it was a great threat to geographical information security, and may even pose a risk to transport and the personal safety of consumers. Number 4. An interactive horror game, Maryam, was developed in Saudi Arabia and released by Salman Al-Harbi on the App Store and Play Store, and it targeted players over the age of 9. A dramatic storyline begins to unfold at the very start of the game, which is rife with themes of fear. Players are guided through Maryam's life and are required to help the young girl fight off creepy ghosts. To do so, they must answer a series of multiple choice and short answer questions. The goal of the game is to lead Maryam back home, and the choices the player makes not only impact her fate, but also theirs. But the questions are what would stir up the controversy surrounding this game that prompted the Ban Maryam movement. Most would think that the questions related to movements in the game, what to do next, and yes-no maybes. The queries instead were deeply personal to the players and became increasingly invasive over time. After casually stating that she could read the player's mind and referencing real-world news to create an illusion in support of this statement, Maryam asks the gamer, "Where do you live?" She also asks personal questions about who the player loves and hates. Gamers were also met with intrusive scenarios, including one particular question that leads to a dark story path involving the central character's father. The game, starting as an interactive horror, slowly morphs into a survival situation and a therapy session that no one signed up for. Eventually, players feel as though Maryam is more of a stalker than a lost child. What really had people concerned, though, was the game's obsessive need to access the player's locations, ultimately sparking rumors of surveillance and data collection. Reports soon circulated across social media that the game may actually be tracking players. But Maryam wasn't actually gathering information on users. It was the eerie atmosphere and deeply personal questions that had the community worried. The Ban Maryam movement was initiated by outraged parents who expressed concerns about privacy and how children wouldn't know how to hand out such information freely. In addition to data harvesting, players also reported that the game was prompting them to engage in unhealthy behaviors. The outcry warranted a closer look at the game, with authorities becoming increasingly concerned about the reports they were receiving. Saudi Arabia subsequently banned the game and issued warnings about its potential psychological impact on young minds. In 2018, Tunisia also banned the game. In Oman, officials received reports and public outcry about the potential to access personal files on users' cell phones or other devices. Warnings were additionally issued in the UAE. Maryam, the interactive horror game, was intended to instill fear, and it did just that by blurring the line between suspense and digital intrusion. Number 3. Surfacing on the subreddit Lost Media was a partially lost video game called Hotel 626, a legendary web-based game released in October of 2008 that vanished from the internet some years later for being too dark. Interestingly, the publication came from an unexpected source, Doritos, to advertise their 2 new flavors, Black Pepper Jack and Smoke and Cheddar Barbecue. The horror game could only be played between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., set against a backdrop of darkness that enhances the eerie experience. It was presented in first-person perspective and starts with players waking up in a hotel. It quickly becomes clear that this is not a place that one would want to stay. What made this game particularly unique and creepy was the use of real-life video and real-life photos of very real people. The characters were not 3D models or computer-generated avatars. The goal was simple: escape the hotel while being hunted by the psychotic maid, ghosts, and demonic infants, except that the game ended up being incredibly difficult. Only some were able to complete the hard puzzles that kept them going. One particularly difficult scenario was when the player was locked up in a room with a man who'd been starved to the point of insanity. If the gamer could not exit in time, the unexpected roommate would eat them alive. But it was not these eerie features that led to massive controversy and a complete shutdown of the web game. It was the collection of personal information. Hotel 626 required microphone input, webcams, and even cell phone numbers, all of which were tailored to a particular purpose in the game itself. The microphone input allowed the players to sing a lullaby to a demonic baby. The webcam took pictures of the player to create specific jump scares, which appeared only later in the game, such as one particular part where a chainsaw-wielding maniac is chasing down the player, provoked by the discovery of a picture of their own face, taken from their own webcam in their own rooms. The phone numbers were used for particularly unsettling phone calls with instructions on how to escape. When the players exited the game, it would still phone them at random hours of the night with pre-recorded messages insisting they were still in the hotel and needed to escape before it was too late. The problem with each of these features was that Doritos never asked for permission to use webcams, pictures, or phone numbers. Ultimately, the game faced intense backlash, prompting the chip company's legal team to panic. Privacy advocates also pointed out that this gaming method and the features used could open the door to potential hackers who could hijack personal information from unsuspecting players. Eventually, the game was pulled from the internet, preventing anyone from ever playing it again. The developers themselves ultimately banned it to avoid being sued. If they hadn't pulled the plug themselves, it may have been done for them with a lawsuit in tow. Number 2. In 1995, a game designed to keep players awake at night after playing, or to have their minds run wild with nightmares, was released. It was called Phantasmagoria, set in a large creaking mansion positioned along a foggy coast. Players were dropped into the game as Adrienne Delaney, a character with hopes of escaping the distractions that are keeping her from writing. She heads to the mansion with her husband, only to find out that it has more inspiration lurking in its corners than she could have ever bargained for. As the story progresses, Adrienne begins to unravel quite the sinister story of the owners who lived in the house before her, a magician who is said to dabble in the dark arts, leaving behind a lasting mark on the home in the form of shadowy figures and unbreakable curses. One of Phantasmagoria's most unique and groundbreaking features is the use of full-motion video, in which real actors were filmed to portray each character. This feature added an eerie sense of realism, making every scene increasingly terrifying. As the couple settles into the mansion and begins unlocking its secrets, Adrienne's husband would descend under the building's spell, morphing from a loving figure into a twisted stranger with a taste for violence. The unsettling realism had horror fans lining up to dive into the game and bear witness to each sequence, with everyone being more gruesome than the last. It was this very game that blurred the lines between virtual fear and real-life terror, a divide that would become disturbingly thin. Phantasmagoria would be the influence behind Hotel 626's visual features a decade later. While the realism made the game more engaging and unbelievable, it also sparked public outrage. The scenes of violence, unfiltered, were far too gruesome for any normal person's eye. The supernatural possession was too convincing, and the psychological abuse that the game imposed was too much for some to handle. In many respects, Phantasmagoria pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in gaming. The controversy surrounding the game influenced the creation and enforcement of content rating systems in the industry. Its notoriety also sparked academic debates over the fine line between art and exploitation in digital media. Phantasmagoria would soon earn a reputation as one of the most controversial games of its time ever to be released. The game was condemned as too explicit, with many scenes overstepping the boundaries of horror, leaving many critics wondering if they'd accidentally walked into a waking nightmare, or onto the set of a film fueled by pure terror. There's one particular scene in this game that led to a redefinition of how much gore could be included in gaming. It was the infamous head in the blender scene that stirred up much of the backlash that this game would face. So with all of this, the homicide, the possession, the gore, the violence, the outcome was almost expected. Millions of people attacked the game, and some retailers refused to even carry it. Politicians and religious groups fought against its release, and CompUSA completely banned it from sale. Australia became the first country to bring the game under intense scrutiny, pointing out that it was far too dark for the public and outright banned it. Phantasmagoria became the first game to be banned in this country, and Singapore followed suit. Some countries found the game so harsh that they refused to even rate it, which by default prevented it from ever being released, while others initiated intense censorship, or the cutting of specific sequences, such as the pendulum scene that removes the main protagonist's head, all done with real actors, making it all the more disturbing and convincing. Number 1. Another psychological survival horror game that left players feeling unsettled and disturbed was the 2006 PlayStation 2 game Rule of Rose. The game was developed by Punchline and published in Japan by Sony, in North America by Atlas, and in Europe by 505 Games. While the game is set in the United Kingdom, the country refused to release it there and banned it for its controversial goals and plot. Rule of Rose is set in 1930 in Cardington, Bedfordshire, England, just a few years before the Second World War breaks out. Players follow the life of a 19-year-old young woman named Jennifer. Her parents had tragically been taken from her in an airship incident. In the opening scene, Jennifer finds herself on a bus traveling down a moonlit road. She's awakened by a mysterious boy who offers her a book. But this book is blank, but the boy runs off before she can ask him any questions. Jennifer follows him off the bus and is led to the Rose Garden Orphanage in the remote countryside. But the establishment is dilapidated and there's not a single adult in sight. Jennifer is greeted only by a crowd of orphaned children who call themselves the Red Crayon Aristocrat Club. The residents would ultimately take the protagonist hostage and place her aboard a large zeppelin inhabited by monstrous creatures known as imps. The blimp is set on course for a distant land, and Jennifer has no place to go. Along the journey, Jennifer rescues a dog bound by the aristocracy, who becomes the player's canine companion. Players must explore environments to find items that advance the plot and complete tasks. While solving puzzles, gamers occasionally encounter battles and conflicts with a few bosses. The character is thrown into disturbing tasks involving mutilated dolls, animal sacrifices, and rituals. Amid searching for items, puzzle solving, and combat, Jennifer is also required to find a monthly gift for the aristocracy and donate it to the gift box. Should the player fail, Jennifer faces a sinister fate. An eerie tone of cult control and social hierarchy comes into play in this game, with each ritual dragging the player deeper and deeper into the twisted games of the aristocracy, uncovering the unconventional truth about the children and her own memories of a traumatic past, accompanied by creepy lullabies. It would be this psychological horror, with its deeply distressing scenes and vulgar undertones, that would bring it under the fire of the very country in which it was set. The Rule of Rose faced major backlash in the UK, with the mayor of Rome and the EU intervening over its release. Italy condemned the game for being violent towards little girls, along with the frowned-upon buried alive scenario. French deputies introduced a bill calling for the game to be banned, citing that its only goal was to violate a young woman, torture her, and end her life. The EU Justice Minister attacked it too, insisting that it was too obscene, cruel, and brutal. 505 Games, the United Kingdom's publisher, cancelled its release, banning it from public release, while both Australia and New Zealand prohibited it. The Australian Classification Board refused to rate the game, which resulted in an automatic ban. Italians also bantered about the game, withdrawing it from release due to every frame dripping with perversion, a claim that confirmed its ban in the country. It was a mix of a creepy children's cult, gruesome rituals, and symbolic violence that kept this game off shelves in several countries and make it a particularly rare find today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.